Welcome to Soft Talk. Let's start the conversation. Is Nepal's tourism industry on the recovery path after weathering waves of the coronavirus pandemic? This, even as another crisis, the Russia Ukraine conflict, rages on along with the ever mutating coronavirus. Seeing is believing, as they say. At tourism hotspots like Thamel and Vasantapur, the footfall of international tourists has definitely increased. This is in comparison to the pandemic times, and this points at the resilient nature of Nepal's tourism industry. At the same time, the still shut offices of many agencies based in the tourist district of Thamel point at grim winters, the grim winters that have passed us all by since the start of the pandemic about 3 years ago. This pandemic has left in its wake significant casualties. Even at agencies that are open for business in Tamil, it is not quite rare to find some of those behind the desks, napping, literally or otherwise, that too in the midst of business hours. Even if these operators are not well into the dreamland, albeit troubled one, they may be well on their way. That is, if there is no interruption from the guests. Feeble signs of a limping industry returning towards normalcy started showing after December 2021. That was when tourists began arriving in small numbers with the gradual opening of travel, trade, trekking, mountaineering, and ticketing agencies. This gradual opening came months after the government started a phase-wise campaign against the virulent strain in January 2021. This campaign gave topmost priority to the frontliners that by extension also included tour trekking guides as well as media persons. As of this presentation, the government of Nepal has administered around 45.2 million doses to 19.6 million people, fully vaccinating 67.2% of the total population. That's a great achievement indeed in these troubled times. The jabs gave the confidence both to the guests, domestic as well as international, and Nepal's impacted tourism industry. The confidence to arrive, receive, and give the guests a taste of Nepali hospitality. With the industry now limping back towards normalcy and ready to offer at least a decent welcome to foreign guests, the footfall of the latter, the footfall of the tourists has gone up. The number have gone up, especially after the end of March 2022, April, the 1st of April, the first week of April 2022, as per some tour, trekking, and mountaineering agencies that this program talked to last week. But size and clout both matter when it comes to reaping the benefits from this windfall. Big players, including those operating with international partners, are benefiting the most, whereas small players still remain without business by and large. Apparently, the pie has not grown that big as yet to benefit the agencies on the fringe. Some well heeled, big, and smart agencies managed to make hay even during the pandemic. At that time, the number of air passengers was few and far between. So was the number of airlines operating on international sectors. This meant high ticket rates for the passengers and high commission for select agencies that got that golden opportunity to sell those much sought after tickets. With a large chunk of the with a large chunk of the population vaccinated against the virus, the arrival figures would have gone up further if the Ukraine-Russia conflict had not in, just gone on unabated. Had it not happened. Notably, this conflict has not affected the arrivals from Russia alone. Rather, it has held back European tourists in their home countries, with some even cancelling their bookings with Nepali operators. As a result of this situation, tourist arrival figures from Europe are disappointing. How hard the impact has been on the agencies catering to Russian or Russian speaking tourists only is anyone's guess. There has been a huge impact on travel agencies that cater to either Russians or Russian speaking populations. What's more, Bhutan and China have remained shut even after Nepal opened her doors for the guests. In normal times, a significant number of tourists used to transit to Bhutan and the Tibet Autonomous Region of China, in particular through Nepal. This used to provide lucrative business opportunities for several travel agencies. The continued shutdown up north has many travel agencies going southwards in Nepal. At the rock bottom, say at the level of the tour, trekking guide, or porter, the impact has been the severest. The impact of the pandemic has been the severest. There were instances of these people taking up odd jobs like that of a security guard, and instances of them selling off the family silver, jewelry, and ornaments, etc., to make a living for themselves and their families during those hard times. At the height of the pandemic, the offer of a temporary job, that of cleaning up localities in Kathmandu, would have provided some relief to these people, but this measure ended up courting controversy as it allegedly became a means to serve the near and dear ones of this tourism fraternity. This left the other without access to those links, those needy ones, high and dry even during the pandemic. Not only umbrella organizations representing Nepal's tourism industry, but governments after hard times have also drawn flack from these agencies, from these travel and tour agencies, for not doing much to reduce the impact of the pandemic on this very sensitive tourism industry in hard times, in dire straits. During the pandemic and after, government authorities didn't do much to promote Nepal abroad and assure those interested in visiting Nepal that the country is safe. That is what one gets to hear from almost all operators. When this program, when soft talk to these people, these operators, that was their point, that this government did not do much, or the earlier one for that matter, did not do much when it came to promoting Nepal abroad and giving assurance to the tourists that Nepal is safe now, that a huge chunk of the population has been vaccinated against the pandemic and the virus is well within control. That is not the message that the government sent abroad. It rather chose to stay silent and chose to do nothing at that time. How did the tourist arrival figures increase then? That is largely due to the efforts of private operators and goodwill on the part of international tourists. This begs a question. Are the worst times over for the tourism industry in particular? Maybe or maybe not. There is no absolute answer to this question. The surge in the number of cases in India and China has set off alarm bells. While the shutdown continues in China anyway, the coronavirus surge in India will, in all likelihood, affect arrivals in Nepal as well. This is because India is also a gateway for tourists visiting Nepal. Add to it a deepening economic crisis resulting from a widening trade deficit, depleting foreign exchange reserves, and escalating market prices. This inflation is primarily due to the rise in the prices of petroleum products exacerbated by the Russia-Ukraine conflict. But in this election year, this conflict is not only to blame for this rising inflation. There are other factors like political parties seeking donations from trade and industries community, and just the people having to ultimately pay for that uh, sum of money they have collected from those trade and industry people. All these will have a very sensitive impact. And all these factors will have a, a very profound impact on a very sensitive tourism industry. This means damage control measures are the need of the hour. And who should undertake those measures? The government, of course. What measures? After the pandemic, many travel, tour, trekking, and mountaineering agencies are not in the pink of financial health. They will need stimulus packages and concessional loans to remain in business. A number of seasoned tour, trekking guides, and porters, the goodwill ambassadors of the tourism industry, have left the profession amid hardships. The hardships I was talking about earlier also. The pandemic brought unprecedented hard times for these people, so much so that the Maoist insurgency years pale in comparison to it. These people, these displaced professionals, will need some sort of a guarantee that the government will not leave them in the lurch the next time a crisis develops, if they are to return to the industry at all. Nepal has great natural and archaeological attractions. We need to focus more on improving our infrastructure, developing new ones if we are to bring more international guests. For example, it takes quite long to travel to Pokhara from Kathmandu via road. We surely need state-of-the-art infrastructure like roads and hotels. Apart from natural archaeological wonders and friendly people who never fail to put on a smile on their faces, better infrastructure from the roads to the tea houses will go a long way in promoting Nepal as a great tourist destination. Pollution has been a deterrent for tourists visiting Nepal, like in many parts of the world. Uh, Improvement in the natural environment will surely bring more tourists to a country located on the lap of Mother Nature and full of architectural wonders. Nepal still remains in the European Aviation Safety Blacklist. This has barred Nepali airlines from flying to European cities to bring in tourists from Europe. Success in removing Nepal from the blacklist will give the tourism industry a shot in the arm. Serious efforts towards that end are absolutely necessary. We have come towards the end of this program, so let's wrap it up with a case. 20 years ago, a travel tour agency in Thamel had about 20 staff. Fast forward 2022, the agency has 3 staff. It has just 3 staff now. The economic crisis resulting from the pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine conflict have hit it hard, and it is trying hard. This agency is trying hard to stay afloat. Alarmingly, this is not an isolated case of declining fortunes of an agency. Many such agencies are in dire straits. This has made it loud and clear that the tourism industry, whose contribution to the gross domestic product of Nepal is around 8%, is not in the pink of financial health. What's more, this slump points at a grimmer scenario at the national level, that the national economy is not doing well. Therefore, it's time for the government to wake up to this fact and act in the interest of the tourism industry and the national economy both. That is, before it's too late. With this remark, I wrap up this edition of Soft Talk. Please subscribe to our channel, comment on our presentation, be there for us through thick and thin, and support this initiative towards the promotion of citizen journalism. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.